Hey, what's going on? You know who it is, you know what it is. All right, you guys, peep game. All right, man. Shout out to the homie K-Ho. Shout out to the homie World Record Boxing. Both of them dudes are out of Dallas, Texas. So I decided to do this video. Shout out to Dallas, Texas. You know, I remember the DOC, man, and the anticipation of him. Everybody was talking about this album that was coming out, and the album exceeded expectations. This album was a masterpiece, great album, produced entirely by Dr. Dre, and it was called No One Could Do It Better. And the first single off the album was called Funky Enough. And this album had classics such as The Formula, The DOC and the Doctor, Whirlwind Pyramid, Portrait of a Masterpiece, the grand finale. It was just a great album. And you think about what could have been if it wasn't for a tragedy that happened with the DOC. In case you guys don't know, he was in a car accident. They say glass got in his throat, messed up his voice, and he was pretty much never the same. He basically wasn't able to talk. He said whenever he tried to rap, it would hurt his vocal cords, so it was just very difficult for him. I think if this man wouldn't have got hurt, I think this dude would have went on to become an all-time great, because he was a great writer. He was a great lyricist. I mean, the dude could flow. And it was just sad. This goes to show you what can happen, you know, when you intoxicated. Now, to a certain degree, what happened to him is his own doing, but it's still a travesty, and you still feel bad about what happened. Because I think had the DOC got to make multiple albums, I think, 20, 30 years to this day, I think we would be talking about him possibly in the top 10 as the greatest that ever did it. You just wonder what could have been if he wouldn't have gotten that car accident. And, you know, it was just shameful what happened to him. But he went on to be a ghostwriter for Dr. Dre and some other artists. He had a child with Erykah Badu. You know, and when I hear him do interviews and I hear him talk, you could tell it hurt him really bad mentally about what happened to him. They said, to a certain degree, they said he was, he wanted to harm himself. I don't know how true that is, but I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad he, just braced himself and lived through it. And, he say now he back in Dallas. He's helping kids, teaching them how to rap and write and all that type of stuff. And I think that's good. But man, I'm telling you, this album was a masterpiece. Like I said, produced entirely by Dr. Dre. The Formula, Funky Enough, Portrait of a Masterpiece, the grand finale, Let the Bass Go. I mean, he had a song on there called Bridget that I heard a couple of years later that was supposed to be on this album, but they decided to cut it because they felt the song was a little too sexually explicit. And I'm going to tell you something about this album. This album was really filled with profanity. The only songs they really went off on was the grand finale and maybe another song. But he wasn't really going off on his album. This album, except for a couple of cuts, was relatively, I'll say PG-13, except for the song, the grand finale. But shout out to the DOC, man, for giving us this masterpiece. Anyway, this your boy Town Biz. I am out.